You're about to see a miracle. This man is Willie. These people with their hands on him are street evangelizers. That's where they found Willie. On the street, in pain, in a wheelchair, unemployed, without hope. You see, Willie has cancer and is bound to his wheelchair. But you are about to see a miracle. Look at his face. That's the look of chronic pain leaving his body. He felt a strange surge of strength enter his body. He was able to stand up and embrace those around him. This is the first time Willie has walked in 7 years. 7 years. A week after this event, he went to the doctor, and the cancer was in remission without any scientific reason. In the days that followed, it was reported that Willie was able to walk without any support and his life was changed forever. Did you see the miracle? When I saw Willie get up from his wheelchair, to me that wasn't the miracle. Do you see what I see? That is a rosary around his wrist. That is the Eucharistic monstrance they are taking Willie to. For me, the real miracle wasn't that Willie was healed. It was that the people who prayed for him to be healed were Catholic. That Willie was healed by Catholics in a Catholic church. You see, I'm a cradle Catholic, and growing up Catholic, I know that most Catholics believe that miracles, healings, signs, and wonders happened only in the Bible and occasionally through the most holy of saints, but usually only after they were dead. That apart from sacraments, we shouldn't expect to see miracles very much. And we certainly shouldn't expect for miracles to happen through the hands of ordinary Catholics. But then, Willie, healed by Catholics. My name is Maura Smith. I am a Catholic and veteran documentarian who has hunted down stories and covered issues all over the world for the BBC, Paramount Communications, 20th Century Fox. Most currently, I've been making movies that have inspired me about my faith. We are living in a time when the church is not only under attack, but countless numbers are leaving and looking for God in other places. Something needs to change. Now more than ever, we need the Holy Spirit to come alive in power. In his apostolic exhortation, Evangelii Gaudium, Pope Francis called the church to raise up a new breed of evangelists that he referred to as spirit-filled evangelizers. The Holy Father said, "Spirit-filled evangelizers are fearlessly open to the working of the Holy Spirit." The goal of this documentary is simple. I wanted to learn what it means to be fearlessly open to the Holy Spirit in evangelization, and to find people in the church who are living out Pope Francis's call to be fearless. My journey started with going to talk with Dr. Ralph Martin and Dr. Mary Healy at Sacred Heart Major Seminary in Detroit, Michigan. Dr. Ralph Martin is a professor of theology and was appointed to the Pontifical Council for promoting the new evangelization, and he is also the president of Renewal Ministries. Dr. Mary Healy is also a professor at the seminary and was appointed by Pope Francis to the Pontifical Biblical Commission.
Well, I think it really all goes back to the day of Pentecost, really. I mean, I think if we would just look closely at what happened the day of Pentecost, we discover so many things that would be so relevant for the life of Catholics in the church today. Because when the Holy Spirit came on the disciples on the day of Pentecost, they had the door locked, remember? They were afraid. So what does it mean to become fearless? It means to kind of really surrender yourself to the person of Jesus Christ, to obey him, to listen to his teaching about the Holy Spirit, to desire the Holy Spirit, and then to pray fervently for the coming of the Spirit. And once the Spirit comes, he casts out fear.
To be fearlessly open to the Holy Spirit, I think means being radically obedient to the quiet promptings of the Holy Spirit. And when we think, even if we're not quite sure, he's telling us to do something, he's instructing us to go pray with somebody, or call somebody, or speak about Jesus with somebody, we need to obey, even if it means I might look foolish, even if it means I might fall flat on my face, I might fail. We do it anyway. And I've been learning in my life, the more you do that, the more clearly you're able to hear the voice of the Holy Spirit. And the more freedom you have, the less you think about human opinion.
If we keep doing business as usual, we're going to go out of business, you know? That we really need God himself to do something. There's a tendency to want to kind of keep things under our control. And of course, God isn't under our control. God can work outside of accepted patterns. And I think Pope John Paul II, St. John Paul II, wanted to encourage us to be open to, he says, the new evangelization needs to be new in ardor, new in method, new in expression. So I think he's saying be open to new ways that the Spirit wants to work today. Be open to new expressions. Don't be quick to say, that's not what I'm used to. It may not be what you're used to, but it may be what the Holy Spirit needs to get you used to in order to be fruitful for him in the cultural environment that we're working in today.
There is an intrinsic relationship between healing and evangelization. Going right back to the beginning, Jesus' commission to his disciples, go proclaim the kingdom of God, heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse lepers, cast out demons. And they did that. They did it during Jesus' earthly ministry. And then they did it all the more after Pentecost. And then in the early church, the Christians continued to do that. As they evangelized in word, they also did healings. The Lord, through them, did signs and wonders that confirmed the truth of the message they spoke. And that's meant to be a part of the church's evangelization in every age. It always has been a part in some degree, but today it's needed more than ever. Because people need more than words. They need to encounter the living God. We live in a culture where we are surrounded by the walking wounded. We are surrounded by people who desperately need the touch of the Lord, either physically or emotionally or spiritually. And we cannot proclaim the gospel to them in words alone. They need to experience the healing power and the love of the Lord through our faith.
After learning about the connection between healing and evangelization, I contacted Dr. Martin's group, Renewal Ministries, to see who connected the healing ministry with evangelization. They pointed me to Father Matthias Thelen. Father Matthias is a priest in the Diocese of Lansing, Michigan, and has a licentiate degree in sacred theology from the Pontifical University of St. Thomas Aquinas in Rome. He also happens to be on the staff of the seminary in Detroit.
One of the things that we see when we look in the New Testament is that the proclamation of the word always comes along with the exercising or a doing of a deed. Word comes along with deed. So in Jesus' ministry, he's proclaiming that the kingdom of God has come. He doesn't just proclaim it, he demonstrates the very presence of the kingdom. He expresses the presence of the kingdom. So when he speaks about the goodness of the Father, how he longs for us to live with him forever, he demonstrates the goodness of the Father by peeling back the evil that has come upon the human race, by showing deeds of healing. He's delivering people from the influence of the evil one because the kingdom of God is here. And so what we see in the New Testament is this great unity of word and deed. And Jesus calls us to do the very things that he did. He commissioned the disciples to heal the sick, to raise the dead, to drive out demons, but he gives us the capacity to do so by pouring out the very Spirit that was on Jesus in us, upon us, so that we can, with the very anointing of Jesus, do what He did. And in many ways, that's what the charisms are all about. The charisms really are manifestations of the very life of Jesus in us, so that we can bring more people into the kingdom. The goal of the healing services that I do is to manifest the love of Jesus, so as to help people come to a response to His love, to make a decision to follow Jesus. That means that I proclaim the Word of God. I proclaim that God is love, that in His Son Jesus, He has come to bring a restoration to humanity who had been alienated from Him, that Jesus is alive, He is risen from the dead. And as I proclaim that truth, I demonstrate the truth that Jesus is present by praying for healing. Jesus shows up through the power of His Spirit and heals people, thereby convincing people that the gospel is real, that Jesus is alive. And that is why I pray for healing in the context of preaching the gospel. I don't preach for the gospel in the context of praying for healing. It's the other way around. And that's what makes healing services so effective. They hear the proclamation of the gospel, and then they see the gospel enacted in a very real way, which gives them the faith to realize this stuff is real, God is real. And if God can do this in the human body, He can do this with my heart and my life.
Father Matthias invited me to attend a citywide healing service that he was leading in Columbus, Ohio, at St. John Newman's Church. The event was sponsored by Encounter Ministries and was well promoted. The church estimated that over 1,300 people came to attend the service. I learned that the attendees came from all over the region.
The first thing that we do in a healing service is we have a Eucharistic procession. Jesus is enthroned on the altar, and we're praising Him with music. We often are just in His presence, praising Him, surrendering everything to Him, lifting His name high. Jesus is praised as we begin the healing service. After time of praise, I normally get up and I proclaim the gospel and I preach.
And I can tell you that I'm a type of Christian who believes that Jesus is alive and that He lives in me. How many of you believe that Jesus lives in you right now? He believes in you. Okay. The reason why this is important is because the gifts of the Holy Spirit are nothing other than the life of Jesus being manifested in you.
I proclaim the gospel in a very succinct way, and I share encouraging stories of what God has done in healing ministry, that what God is doing now.
And so we started praying with people, and I won't forget the first person. She was about like 75 years old. She had severe arthritis. She could barely get up and barely sit down. And so she was in a lot of pain. And so the doctor's like, well, how about you pray with her? We prayed with her, and within, I think, probably 5-10 minutes, she was completely healed, held her cane up and showed the doctor. The doctor's like, what's going on? She's all smiling and stuff. It's a great story. But then I told the doctors to keep sending people to us.
And I share an encouragement for people to really be bold and to believe that Jesus can do the same in that very evening.
We see a woman who's like in her mid-30s with a very large hernia. Okay, she's got this hernia, her stomach's in pain, and the doctor says you either need God or surgery, or actually surgery or God. I can't do anything. And so we pray over her, and we just say, Lord, let your presence come. And then she says right away she felt heat and tingling come into her abdomen. Like, more Lord, more Lord. We just kept praying, and then all of a sudden she said her stomach was moving. So we just started commanding the stomach to be healed in the name of Jesus. And as we started doing that, she said, it's moving, it's moving. And after a while, we asked her how she felt. She says, there's no more pain. And so I said, go to the doctor. She comes back from the doctor, and the doctor comes out. She's like, she's completely healed. She doesn't even need surgery anymore. And the doctor's like, I can't even process this. What is going on? I'm like, this is awesome. You know, a guy with cataracts.
An essential part to every healing service is addressing some of the blocks to the activity of the Holy Spirit. Number one, the first block is unforgiveness. Unforgiveness is one of the greatest ways to prevent God from working in your heart. Jesus says, unless you forgive, you cannot be forgiven. It's because we reject God's grace. And so we address that. I help people come to forgive people who have hurt them or those who have hurt those who love them.
What we're going to do now, we're going to give Jesus an opportunity to reveal to us who we need to forgive. And I want you to give Jesus permission right now to reveal to you who you need to forgive. I want you to repeat this prayer after me. Lord Jesus, please reveal to me anyone I need to forgive. As we pray, people are going to start coming up in your mind. For some of you, you've made efforts to forgive such people that just never seems possible to let them go. As people start coming up in your mind now, I want you to just say, Jesus, I forgive, and release them to Him. Jesus, I forgive. If you're having a particularly difficult time doing that, Jesus, by your power, I forgive.
Number 2 is that I address pride or self-reliance. We cannot come into God's presence believing we don't need Him. I address the different idols that we have in our lives and invite people to a deeper surrender to God's presence in the Holy Spirit.
The second block of healing is self-reliance and pride. The person who doesn't believe he needs God is the one who tries to live without Him. Living without God is impossible. What's left for those who live without God is suffering and death. It's often in the Christian life, we try to make ourselves good, and we try to do the right thing without recourse to Him. And the pride that says, God, I don't need you. The pride that says, God, I don't need religion. I don't need Jesus. I can provide for myself. I can make it in this world by myself. That type of blindness is a condition that is very dangerous. It is that blindness which blocks us from receiving the very love that God has for us.
After leading the congregation through a time of forgiveness and repentance, Father then invited everyone to commit or recommit their life to Jesus.
The next part of the healing service is that I pray for words of knowledge, asking the Lord what conditions He wants to heal that night. And I receive them in different ways, but I proclaim them and I say, I believe God is healing people with these conditions. And then when I actually proclaim that, people respond in faith, often receiving healing as the word is given. Sometimes during the service, I have people wave their arms if they are healed. If they're 80% or better, I'll have them wave their arms and I have them come forward and talk with someone and share what happened. And if they're 100% healed, sometimes I'll stop the service and I'll actually have them testify to everyone what just happened. And in some services, I do this actually a lot. I do this for up to 20 minutes because I want people to know that Jesus is active and He's already healing people. And that gives people faith that God can heal them as well.
I'm just going to start giving words of knowledge. Stay in a period of prayer. If the words of knowledge describe you in any way, I want you to try to do something you couldn't do before. Try to see if there's any tingling or heat going on whatsoever. I got a word of knowledge of someone's right thumb. I also got fractured hand. Someone's hand has been fractured, someone's right thumb.
And then the priest says, he senses someone with a right thumb. And I was like, oh, well, I injured my right thumb. So I start bending it, and I could never do this. Well, I could never do this, but after the injury, and so I go up there, and I'm healed.
I got the word like a metatarsal in the foot. Maybe it's the 5th metatarsal. I don't know what foot that is, but to someone's foot is being healed.
Well, I had a broken metatarsal bone in my foot, and there's no pain.
No pain, and she doesn't need the boot anymore. Walk around, show us.
I also have bones in the neck. There's bones in the neck that needed healing, and God is healing that right now.
All right, I have Michelle with me right here. She had level 9 back pain or level 9 pain in her neck that went to a 2. What happened when he prayed?
There was a lot of warmth, no tingling, but all of a sudden the pain's gone.
So there's warmth. The Holy Spirit came upon her neck, and the pain is completely gone. Let's give it up for God.
Someone's hips hurt, especially when they walk. It might not be when they sit, might not be when they stand, but there's walking, like a hip pain when you're walking. If that's you, receive that. If that's you, receive that in the name of Jesus.
I do have some arthritis in my hips. I was praying for other things, but I felt all this tingling like around my hips. And so he said, well, is anything better? And I thought, well, that isn't what I was praying for, but I had this tingling and I do have arthritis a little bit. And so he said to try something that you couldn't do before, so I just kept popping up and down.
In the middle of someone's back, straight in the middle of the back, there's a severe misalignment, which is causing a lot of pain. The Lord is bringing that into alignment right now. It's like right below the scapular, but kind of between them. There's something right there that God is healing right now. Thank you, Lord.
Okay, Amy, you had some pain in your
Scapula.
scapula. Awesome. And Amy, you said before we started tonight, your pain level was at an 8 or a 9.
And I couldn't lift my arm.
She couldn't lift her arm. And Amy, where's your pain level right now?
It's gone.
It's completely gone. Amen.
Last week, we had a word for people with scoliosis. 2 women were healed on the spot. They felt their spines aligning right at that moment. And they were completely healed. So if you have scoliosis, in the name of Jesus, be healed.
Grace, could you tell everyone your condition?
Yes, I have a problem with scoliosis and lordosis, and for the past year I have been with a lot of pain. I can't.
How much pain out of 10 on a daily basis?
9.5.
9.5.
And every day I have pain during the morning. When I get up, when I go, I have to put a towel under my neck in order for me not to have so much pain. I have to roll the towel and put under my back and my neck.
And what happened when Father prayed?
I feel chilly, and then a vibration all over my body. And he asked me to test, and I test back, and I don't have no pain.
So what's your pain level at now?
Nothing.
Nothing. Amen. Can you demonstrate? Whoa, scoliosis no more. Thank you, Father.
So what often happens is when someone shares their testimony of what God healed them of, that gives faith to someone else with that same condition to approach Jesus in faith. We see this in the gospel. The woman with the hemorrhage approaches Jesus and said, if I only can touch the hem of his garment, I would be healed. She touches it, power comes out of Jesus, heals her. We see chapters later, people in that town are hoping just to touch the hem of his garment. And so her testimony of being healed must have given people faith to approach Jesus in the same way.
So Colette had back pain for 30 years. What happened, Colette?
It was before he even called out the name that I was just praying that the Holy Spirit would come and be open, and then I was afraid to move, and because it felt like it was gone, and it's gone.
Awesome. Can you come up here and move around and
I couldn't kick a ball or jump with my kids, and I went into the bathroom just now, and I can jump.
Yeah! Amen. Give it up for Jesus.
And even sometimes, I actually have each of the people who have something wrong with their body or they're sick raise their hand and have everyone else pray over them, commanding those sicknesses to be healed, and then people going for it and praying for them. And oftentimes, God wants to heal people that way as well.
The kingdom of God is here. Amen. Amen. So right now, that's the first way we're praying for healing. The second way I'm going to do is systematically go through different body part groups, and you're going to pray for each other. Okay? Because the reason is that you are anointed by Jesus. You have his spirit within you. You're going to intercede for your brother or your sister around. Okay? And I'm going to lead you in your prayer. You can just repeat after me, okay? So if you have something wrong with your arms or your legs, I want you to raise your hand. Arms or your legs. If you have not been healed, you have something wrong with your arms or your legs, I want you to raise it high. I want you to find someone with their hand raised. If you don't have your hand raised, find someone with their hand raised. I want you to go around them right now, okay? Right now. It's okay. We can get out of our pews in church. Thank you, Lord. Find someone that needs to be prayed with. Find out what's wrong with their arms, what's wrong with their legs in the name of Jesus. Thank you, Lord. And I want you to just start calling out, "Come, Holy Spirit." Speak it out loud so they can hear you. Come, Holy Spirit. You're praying into their body. Come, Holy Spirit. And I want you to repeat after me. In the name of Jesus, I command you arms. I command you legs. Be healed in Jesus' name.
Father Matthias led the congregation to pray with one another several times. Afterwards, many people came forward to testify and report healings that they had experienced. Among those healed during this form of prayer was this young man.
This is John Paul. John Paul had a cyst in his arm. Can you tell us more about that?
So what would happen is anytime I played contact sports, I'm a baseball player, whenever I got hit there or anything, it would cause a lot of pain. Whenever I tried doing heavy lifting, it would cause me a lot of discomfort. And the lady, I don't even know her, behind me, she just, picked me out. She prayed over me, and I felt so, it wasn't like a warmth or a tingling, but it almost like an extra layer of padding was there. And then I asked my dad to hit me, and it didn't hurt at all.
Can we demonstrate that right now? Nope.
There's nothing there.
Come on, give it up to God. Oh my gosh.
When I'm done from the AMBO, I invite the prayer teams to come forward and do individual prayer ministry. Often God wants to heal people through individual prayer ministry, and sometimes it takes that personal responsiveness, that personal interviewing, seeing what's happening in order for someone to receive healing. So an essential part of every healing service is having people line up and receive personal prayer ministry.
To close out the night, the Encounter Ministry team formed individual prayer ministry stations around the church. People lined up at the various stations to receive prayer for healing. The Eucharist remained exposed, and the people were invited to bring their thanksgiving to Jesus on the altar. This went on for almost 3 hours.
One of the greatest fruits of healing ministry is evangelization. When people are healed at a healing service, or they're touched in a very powerful way by God in their heart, they will do everything they can to bring other people to Jesus.
One example of this fruit of the Encounter Healing Service was Steve Boyden.
Told me about this healing, and when I told my wife about it, who is a C5-6 quadriplegic, the first thing out of her mouth, God bless her, was that maybe God can heal your back so you can better take care of me. And it's not that I doubted. I didn't doubt. But when Father called us out about the back, I felt a warmth. I didn't feel tingling or a lightning bolt, or I just felt like someone had put their hand on my back. And so he said something about testing it out. So I put my hand back, and I cannot, and before I could push and tell you exactly where the pain was. I have a disease called degenerative joint disorder, and there's no cure for it. It's just all the arthritis, tendonitis attacking my spine, and I've had it for decades. It does nothing but get worse. And 2 years ago, when they diagnosed it, I went through a bunch of therapy, and it did not help. And in the process of taking care of my wife, it just got worse. And so for her to say, maybe God can heal your back, He did. And on the way here to this room, He healed my knee. I'm gonna have to have surgery on the knee, and there's no pain, none. And I just want to praise God for healing me, but what He's done better than that was renew a fervor in my heart about serving in the church more and to witnessing more to the healing power of Christ in my life and what He is doing now. Not what He did 2,000 years ago, but what He's doing in this day, in this century. And the fear, that be not afraid, there is just no fear. It is amazing. It is glorious. It is I can't say enough about it. But praise God that He loves us. That I have never been more loved and felt more loved in my life by my Father than I have at this moment. Hallelujah. Hallelujah, and praise God. I love you, Jesus.
Throughout the night, I witnessed many incredible healings, including a woman with deaf ears opened during prayer ministry who would come forward and witness to her restored ability to hear. I also saw degenerative eyesight restored, spine damage restored, and many people overwhelmed by the love of God and one another. Throughout the course of the night, we counted approximately 200 people who reported healing at 80% or better from their condition. We invited participants who reported healing in their body to have testimonies recorded. We recorded 25 testimonies of people healed from a foot ailment, a broken tailbone, chronic nerve pain, chronic back pain, a stress fracture, a knee injury, mental illness, arthritis, partial blindness, fibromyalgia, and a torn rotator cuff. In the days and weeks that followed, we received emails that cancer screenings were coming back negative, that different body parts that were withered were now restored. We even received a report from a doctor who sent his patient with chronic Lyme disease to the healing service. The patient was completely healed. The symptoms of the disease were gone, and the test results came back negative. Although these healings are clearly happening, there still remains a great deal of confusion and misunderstanding that Catholics have about healing in the Church. I sat down with Father Matthias and Dr. Mary Healy to discuss these misconceptions.
One of the biggest misconceptions that many Catholics have about healing has to do with redemptive suffering. As Catholics, we have this beautiful theology of suffering. We know that God can use suffering as the chisel which makes a rough block of marble into the beautiful statue He wants it to be. And we know that our suffering united with Christ can even be a means of grace for other people. So we have this beautiful theology of suffering, but the mistake we make is that we then assume that if I have some kind of illness or disability or disease that is weighing me down, that God must want that, and that my only response should be resignation, that it's actually more holy not to ask for healing, not to pray for healing. And that is a tremendous misunderstanding. We have to go back to the Gospels and be challenged by the Gospels. And what we see there is that every single person who came to Jesus to ask for healing was healed. He responded invariably, treating sickness and infirmity as objective evils to be overcome. Now, it's true that God can work good out of evil, and God can bring great grace out of our suffering. But our first response should be to ask the Lord for healing with great confidence. Just like the first response, if you're diagnosed with a terrible disease, you go to the doctor. You don't say, oh, well, I have a disease, God must want that, so I'm not going to go to the doctor because that would be wrong. No, of course not. We go to the doctor because we know it's right to seek health and wholeness. God wants that for us. How could we do that and not go to the divine physician who wants the fullness of life for us more than any human being?
We need to make a distinction between healings that are miraculous and healings that are progressive, that is, healings that actually happen later. A lot of times, healing can happen in a very, very fast, instantaneous manner. That got, like, muscles begin to be rebuilt, bones are healed, people are able to see, things are healed instantaneously. That's a miracle. Those happen, but also sometimes miracles happen when you pray and it speeds up the process. Your prayer speeds up the process. It can be a day or two, or 3 or 4, or weeks or months when the persons are healed. Sometimes some of the greatest miracles I've seen have been progressive miracles. It wasn't the day they've been prayed with or the next day, but it came that week. But something begins to happen when you pray. We believe that because Jesus commanded us to pray with His authority.
So many Catholics have no idea of the baptismal authority that we have in Christ. During His earthly ministry, Jesus sent out not only His 12 apostles on their first practice mission, but He later sent out 72 disciples, which was probably most or all of the disciples He had at the time, symbolic of the mission of every layperson in the church. And then the risen Jesus met with His disciples after He rose from the dead, and He said, "These signs will accompany those who believe." In other words, all Christians. And He mentioned several things. They will cast out demons. They will speak in new tongues. They will lay their hands on the sick, and they will recover. So as Christians, those who are baptized into Christ and have faith in Him, we have authority in His name over sickness and disease.
Some people ask me whether it's possible to lose the healing that they have received. And my answer is yes and no. On the one hand, no, because God gives gifts of healing because it's a gift. It's not something we earn. But on the other hand, if the condition by which that healing was received, such as faith and repentance, is lost, then the enemy can come back and try to take back territory that God had gained in that person's life. For example, a few months ago, a woman came to a healing service and she was completely healed of Crohn's disease. She had no symptoms at all for a full 2 days, which is impossible for Crohn's disease. And yet, after 2 days, her symptoms began to come back. And so her mom emails me and says, "What's going on? She was healed, now she's not healed." I said, "Come to the seminary, let's talk about it." And it turns out she began to doubt what God had done for her. She's like, "No way God could have healed me. No way would he do this for me." And I told her about the relationship between faith and healing is that you need to thank the Lord and have faith in what He has already done so as to remain and to receive what He has done. And so she knew that. She's like, "Yeah, you're right. I was doubting." And so we prayed again. The same thing happened, and she had faith. And so she was able to keep that.
Another misconception is that many Catholics are afraid to seek spiritual gifts. They're afraid to ask God for them. And they may have read in the writings of some of the saints and some of the great spiritual teachers of our Catholic tradition that you shouldn't seek experiences of God, and that you should be very cautious about seeking any gifts because they might lead to pride. You might deceive yourself. Now, that is absolutely true if you're talking about extraordinary mystical phenomena, which God gives at His own discretion for the benefit of the individual in their own spiritual life. Those are different from the charisms of the Holy Spirit. The spiritual gifts distributed by the Holy Spirit among all the faithful for the building up of the body. So spiritual gifts are not for the person who receives them. They are to give away to others. They are because God wants to bless others through you. And in fact, Paul says in Scripture, earnestly desire the spiritual gifts.
Although it's important to have powerful evangelization ministries happening inside the four walls of the church, Pope Francis has continually called the church into mission. In a recent homily, he said, "The way of the church is precisely to leave her four walls behind and go out in search of those who are distant, those essentially on the outskirts of life." Father Matthias connected us with his friends, Patrick and Aaron, from Encounter Ministries, who helped him at the healing service. Having been discipled in the spiritual gifts, they put them to use in the service of evangelization to bring the gospel to everyone they meet in their city of Columbus, Ohio.
My friends Patrick and Aaron are filled with the Holy Spirit, and they just give God a blank check to do whatever He wants with them. And so they get together, they have adoration, prayer, in fellowship, but then they sit down and they pray and they say, "Lord, who do you want us to touch today? How do you want to touch them? How do you want to bring your love? How do you want us to speak about your love to people? Show us what you want. And that radical availability to the Holy Spirit allows God to give that inspiration so that they can go out and proclaim Jesus to people that they don't even know they're going to meet.
Okay, I saw an image of an elderly black man, and I got this sense. I asked the Lord what that meant, and He said that this guy had a son. He had like a son, and the son was estranged from him. And I asked the Lord what that meant, and He said that I'm supposed to declare that the Lord is going to restore his relationship with his son. And then I asked him where that guy is, and I got an image of the men's shelter, that he's somewhere around the men's shelter, just a few blocks away from here. I saw an image of an older middle-aged woman. She had blonde hair, and she had chronic pain that was preventing her from receiving the Father's love, and that we're supposed to find her and pray for her healing. So I get the sense that she's somewhere walking up High Street. So we're gonna find her walking up High Street, maybe on the right side, like, north of campus, like south of Clintonville. So that's what I got.
I got a couple names, David, maybe James, and that we're supposed to pray for healing in either hands or eyes.
So not knowing exactly what God had planned for that afternoon, we, in faith, jumped into Patrick's car and drove to the first place that the Lord had revealed to us in prayer that we were supposed to be headed. It was a men's shelter here in town. And we were looking for the man that met the description that the Lord had given us in prayer. We were looking for an elderly African-American gentleman. And as we pulled up, we realized that he was nowhere to be seen, right? We pulled in front of the men's shelter, and across the street is this gathering of all young men who looked slightly intimidating to us at the moment. And we parked the car, committed to living out the experience that we committed that day to. And we opened up the doors and got out of the car and closed the doors behind us and started to head across the street, thinking, well, maybe we got the details wrong a little bit. As we were walking around the car, we heard a couple of voices coming from an alley that was right in front of where we had parked. Behind a row of trash cans, we round the corner, and we find these two elderly African-American gentlemen meeting the description perfectly of who we had set out to find. So we were pretty enthused at that point. And we walked up to them and we said, hey, this is gonna sound super weird, but we were just at church praying, and the Lord invited us to come out and to look for someone who looked kind of like you. And they were actually more surprised than we were when all this lined up, because they had just been praying through Scripture, and they were just having this conversation about how God does amazing things. And they agreed to pray with us. And as we entered into prayer with them, all the words that the Lord had revealed to us just started to make sense.
Yes, sir.
Maxwell, do you have a son?
Yes.
Okay. When we were praying back at the church, I just got this word that I was going to pray with a man that had a son that was apart from him, estranged. And the word that I got was that the Lord wanted to bring restoration. He wants to reconcile the son to the father. So are you guys estranged at all?
Well, he's in Florida.
Okay.
I'm here from Florida. We don't spend a lot of time together because him and myself and his mother, became divided.
Mm-hmm.
He spent more time with his mother. Then, he get to spend. I was trying to get him here, but for some reason it didn't work out. So.
Can I just pray for that restoration for you? So Father, I just thank you for the gift of this man. I thank you for the word that you gave me, Lord, that he would have that restored relationship, Lord. You sent us out here I saw an image of an older black man that I was supposed to come over this way and pray with and declare that the relationship between the Son and the Father is going to be reconciled.
Yes.
Because he brought a ministry of reconciliation. So Father, we release your reconciliation, your mercy, and your healing over this man, over his son. Pray this in the name of Christ.
So I know that's amazing. That is truly amazing. God is awesome. You know, it's like.
So after praying with Maxwell, Patrick and I were so excited that what the Lord had revealed to us in our time of prayer had struck true. So we gave high fives and figured that this was a successful day, and started walking back to the car. Not even 10 seconds after we left the conversation, a guy shouts to us from across the street, and he says, "Hey, what are you guys doing?" So we explained to him pretty jubilantly and excited at this point that we were praying with people. We asked him if he wanted to pray, and he said, "Yeah, I'll be right over." So he starts walking to us.
What's your name?
David Calloway.
David. I'm Patrick Rice. Can you
That's
tell us
hard.
about meet you?
I just left the hospital.
Okay.
Broke my finger.
Okay. How much pain is in your finger right now?
About a 5.
A 5? Can we pray for that?
Yeah.
Right now?
This finger right here.
This finger. What's your name again?
David Edward Calloway.
David?
You ever heard of Cap Calloway?
Yeah.
That's my great uncle.
David, we were praying at the church, and the Lord told us that we were going to meet a guy named David. So, Father, you've sent us to be with a man named David. So, Father, we just release your grace, your favor, your healing touch upon this finger. I command all pain to leave this finger in Jesus' name right now. I pray for complete restoration over this finger in Jesus' name right now. David, how does your finger feel?
It feels wonderful.
Bye, David. Okay,
Right. So we're driving.
We're getting close to like north of campus right now, and we're looking for this older middle-aged woman who's got chronic pain. She's got pain issues that's keeping her from receiving the Father's love. So, I think that might be her. I'm gonna pull over here. And so maybe this woman walking up here, we're supposed to pray with. All right. So I got out of the car and I walked up to this woman and I said, "I know it sounds crazy, but I was just at church praying and I saw an image of a woman that looks just like you that had chronic pain walking down High Street, and I was supposed to come pray for that woman. And then she told me that she has chronic back pain, and I asked her if I could pray for her, and she said, absolutely." What level of pain do you have?
It's probably about a 7.
A 7 right now?
Yeah.
Okay, a 7 right now. And do you have, is one leg longer than the other?
Yeah.
Okay, can you sit down for me? Okay. Heavenly Father, in the name of Jesus, I pray, I release complete, I command all pain over her lower back to go. I see fear over your life. I command all fear of pain to go in Jesus' name. Lord Jesus. Lord, I speak complete restoration, complete strengthening. I pray that all the weakened muscles in your back, the back that you use to do too many things that you shouldn't have been doing to hurt your back, I command you broken muscles to be healed in Jesus' name right now. And that which blocked the Father's love, I break it right now, and I pray for complete restoration of your spirit with the Holy Spirit right now in Jesus' name. Do you feel any different right now?
Yeah.
Where are you at right now? If you were at a 7 before, where are you at right now?
Really, not feeling nothing but a dull ache.
Amen. Well, thank you, Jesus, for that. I just wanted you to know that God loves you so much. Yeah.
Thank you, dear Jesus, dear God, for allowing these two gentlemen coming to my world today and blessing me with your love and giving me relief on my back pain and showing me that there is truth in your name. I believe in you. I believe in your love. Bless us all. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Thank you.
Amen. God bless you, Melanie. The real foundation to Spirit-filled evangelization is the fact that we as God's people are able to hear His voice and that He wants to speak with us. You know, the Lord is always speaking to His children. How silly would it be for Him to lovingly set us on a path and then walk away? That's not how a father works. A father seeks and desires to be in constant communication with the ones that he loves.
In baptism, each of us participate in the very life of Jesus, who was priest, prophet, and king. And Jesus gives us the capacity to proclaim the Word of God with boldness, but also to hear the Word of God. Being a prophet in many ways is just being able to hear the voice of God and to hear that voice for other people, to speak into other people's lives what they believe the Lord is saying. And that gift, when exercised in the church, has a remarkable capacity of building people up, of encouraging them, of consoling them, of giving them an awareness of what the Lord is doing so they can respond with greater fidelity and with greater confidence.
So we see this played out perfectly in Scripture, right? Jesus tells us in the Gospels that He is the shepherd and we are His sheep, and that we will not know the voice of the stranger because we know His voice and His voice alone. Why do we go through life expecting that we're not going to hear His voice?
You know, sometimes people say, you know, what you're talking about sounds a little esoteric. I mean, is this really supposed to be normal for all Catholics to hear the voice of the Lord? Yes, it is. And it doesn't mean hearing an audible voice, but it means becoming accustomed to the Lord Himself dwelling in us, becoming accustomed to, like Jesus says, my own know my voice. Jesus expects His own to know His voice.
When Jesus was baptized, we see this experience where the heavens were opened above Him, and He hears the voice of His Father saying, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I'm well pleased." Those heavens opened up, and the voice of His Father was that voice of affirmation and confirmation that pushed Him into ministry. And the cool thing about the story is that the heavens never closed up over top of Him, that once Jesus found His identity in the Father's love for Him, He operated under that blessing forever. We too have that same opportunity and that same invitation and that same blessing to operate under an open heaven with a Father who reveals our identity and worth and calls us forth to mission.
So I decided to go to Columbus to visit my friends Patrick and Aaron, and while we were down there, we just decided, hey, let's go and evangelize on the campus of Ohio State University.
I attended The Ohio State University my freshman year of college, and it was during that time that I completely fell away from the faith. In fact, I had a near-death experience and almost died in the worst of circumstances. Now that I'm back in Columbus, I have a huge heart for the students at Ohio State.
And the reason why we went out is because we wanted to bring people an encounter with Jesus. We wanted to foster that encounter in our conversation with them and in our time of prayer with them. That was the sole purpose.
A camera crew followed Father Matthias, Patrick, and Aaron as they went to the Student Union at Ohio State University to evangelize and pray with students. On the upper level of the Union, Patrick met a student named Ben.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. So, man, tell me your story. What's your story?
I'm from Orange County, California.
No way.
Yeah, so I'm kind of far from home, but yeah, I grew up Orange County, like really close to the beach, probably 15 minutes. Spent most of my life there. I've traveled throughout the country, around the world, been to
And so you travel in Europe?
Yeah, I did.
And where'd you go?
I went to London when I was in elementary school, and then in high school I went to France, like Paris, and then the south of France, and then I went to Rome and Switzerland. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. I studied abroad, and I actually went to Rome a year and a half ago. Awesome. I got to see the Pope.
Yeah, I went to one of the Pope's, like, whatever
audiences.
Like, the audiences in Vatican Square. That was
Sir,
really
are you Catholic?
Yeah, I guess you could say. Like, not really that practicing that much. Like, I'll go to church every, like, Christmas. I'll go for, like, Ash Wednesday and stuff like that, Easter. But and then I went to the Pope.
Yeah,
that was pretty cool.
If you're Catholic and you're in Rome, you've got to go see the Pope, right? Yeah. So tell me, what was your faith like growing up?
Not really all that involved. Like, we'd go to church every now and then. My dad's not religious at all. My mom is Catholic, so every now and then we would go to church. Or whenever I'm out here, my aunt and family that lives out here is very Catholic, so we will, like, go to mass and stuff like that. And, like, I had my communions and my confirmation and stuff out here, and yeah, got baptized out here in Ohio, some church downtown.
Do you believe God has an assignment for your life, like things that He wants you to do, like a plan?
I have never really thought about that, to be honest.
Okay.
I try to help.
Who is the Holy Spirit to you?
I honestly don't really know. I haven't I don't know.
Have you ever been touched by the Holy Spirit in a way that you felt?
Not that I've felt. I feel like maybe I'm too young to have felt that already, but.
Would you want the Holy Spirit to touch you and fill you with His love?
If it would benefit my life and the life of like people around me, like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, I mean, what could hurt? Can I pray for that for you?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, awesome, man. All right, man, just open up your hands.
All right.
And just close your eyes. I don't want you to pray. I just want you to realize what God's doing right now. So, Father God, I just thank you for the gift of Ben right now. I just see adventure over your life. I see just like boldness, and that boldness, it pleases the Lord. He likes people, that He wants to partner with people, Ben, that take risks, that don't look back. And you're the type of person that the Lord says is a person that will take risks for Him. So that just pleases the Lord. I see His presence all over you. I see hunger for God over you. So Father, in the name of Jesus, I pray that you just come upon His hands right now. Oh Lord, thank you, God. Do you feel anything right now?
Kind of. My hands are like kind of closing.
Okay. Yeah,
I feel like I'm holding something,
to
be honest.
That's the presence of God. You're not holding my hand, okay? So Holy Spirit, I pray that you flow and just give Him more, Lord. More. More, Lord. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. More, Lord. What are you feeling right now, Ben?
I'm feeling, I can't control my hands. They're just closing in. I'm feeling something like deep inside, like tightening.
Jesus says to lay hands on the sick and they'll recover. There's something about our hands that are powerful. And so when I pray for God to touch people, I pray over their hands, but I don't touch their hands because if the Holy Spirit manifests Himself to them, I don't want them to confuse the Holy Spirit with the natural warmth of my hands. So Lord, I pray that you would just take His hand, and that as He's taking your hand back, that you just change his life forever right now.
Yeah.
What do you feel?
I'm feeling good. I'm not gonna lie. Like my legs are light. My legs feel light, like they feel like they're flying, kind of like I don't even feel them on the ground. It just
That's God. Good. That's God. What do you want to know from Him right now? I feel like He wants to tell you something.
I don't know. Like, why not?
Are you hungry? I see hunger over you. I see like just awesome. You're on the cusp of a new horizon. The Lord wants to take you that level. Can I pray for you one more time?
Of course.
All right. So just, Father, I just pray in the name of Jesus that you come upon into his mind right now. So Father, in the name of Jesus, I release supernatural visions of your love. I pray that you show him what love looks like right now, Lord. So from the top of his head to the soles of his feet, Father, I pray that your presence would rush through him like a river. So come, Holy Spirit, and show him what your love looks like right now. What are you seeing?
I saw my family back home and like my girlfriend and stuff, and it was good. Like the people I love most.
Dude,
putting a tear in my eye.
That's awesome. That dude, like that God is he's making a family right now.
Yeah.
He's making a family. He wants you to be in his heart. Now this is the life that like God always wants you to when you live in his life and you have his presence, it empowers you to do things that you weren't able to do without his life. And that's the purpose of the church. That's the purpose of all of this, is to have access to his life. Mm-hmm. And you know, I feel so bad that like you were raised in a way that it was presented to you like a bunch of dead rituals.
Yeah.
But that's not what it is.
Holy Father, God, I'd like to thank you for letting me meet these gentlemen and, you know, like making me feel so great and showing me like your ways and stuff like that, and showing me how, like, I guess reintroducing me to what it's like to be with you. And I hope these guys can, I guess, touch someone else the way they touch me. So thank you, God. Amen.
Amen.
Yeah.
Son. Dude, I just met you. Can I give you a hug?
Yeah, of course.
Dude, you're awesome, Ben.
You're awesome, man.
No, you're awesome.
One of the things that's important to remember is that we are incarnational beings. And if the Holy Spirit, who is God himself, comes upon someone, there might be some sort of physical manifestation. Because again, we're not just minds, we're not just souls, we have bodies. And often when God comes in power, there are physical manifestations, physical responses of the body to his presence. And so sometimes, actually it's not that uncommon to have people's hands shake a little bit or maybe feel tingling or heat because God is on them. It doesn't happen all the time, but sometimes it happens. It's just as a sign of His presence. That presence manifests to them in an interior and an exterior way the truth of what is being preached.
In another area of the union, Aaron met a student named Carrie. While they spoke, Patrick was interceding behind the camera.
Okay, so I grew up Catholic. I was raised Catholic.
In Cleveland.
In Cleveland.
Most people are, I think.
I went to, well, the area I'm from Lakewood. I don't know if you know anything about it.
It sounds familiar. I've been up to Cleveland a couple times.
Catholic. There's, like, I went to Catholic grade school for all 8 years. Went to a Catholic high school for 4 years. And then I came here, so. I don't know, it was part of growing up for me.
Okay, so Catholic grade school, Catholic high school, part of growing up. And what's happened since you came to Ohio State?
I don't know, I guess I've gotten more distant. I don't go to church every week or anything like that. I'll go to church like when I go home to visit my mom because she likes me to go with her, so I'll do that.
Guess what? We're here in the, so what's this room called?
The flag room.
The flag room. Understandably so. We're here in the flag room, and I bet that no one has ever prayed in the flag room before for an encounter with God, but I wonder if you'd be open to praying just that God would come and be present in your heart.
Do I have to say it?
No.
Oh, okay.
You just get to sit there and receive.
Yeah, I would love to.
Are you open to that?
Sure.
Okay. God wants to speak to us. How silly would it be for a father who loves us with his whole heart to only talk when we come and ask him to talk to us? That's not real. God's talking to us every day. It's just us kind of putting ourselves in a place where we can actually hear His voice. So I believe that if we ask God a simple question right now, that He's going to give us an answer.
Okay.
So eyes closed, hands open.
Hands again?
I don't need your hands.
Okay.
Whatever. But we're going to pray. Holy Spirit, that you would come, and we're going to ask you a simple question, God, and we're going to expect a simple answer in response. So, Carrie, repeat after me, okay? Father, what do you think of me right now?
What do you think of me right now?
Okay, now we're gonna wait for a word, and the first word that comes to your mind. I just want you to be bold and answer that out. Was there a word that kind of came to your mind when you said that?
Yeah, but I don't know.
What word was it?
Power.
Okay, power. Do you want power?
I don't know.
Do you want power? Power is sweet. All right. What does power remind you of?
I don't know.
Good. Is there something going on in your heart right now?
I don't know what's happening.
Okay, what are you feeling?
I don't really know. It's been a while since I've prayed.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
While Aaron was praying for Carrie, I was behind the camera. So I started asking the Lord for specific details about her life and what He wanted to say.
That's a blessing. Good. Awesome.
I have a question. Did you play volleyball at some point?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want me to keep going?
Why?
You played in high school?
Yeah.
Okay. And when you were close to certain teammates, really close?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you not close with some of them now? I just saw the Lord show me an image when we were praying of you going down for a dig, like you were a big girl. You're right? I don't know.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, go.
All right. And then there was something that happened with girls on the team, and it created huge problems between you guys, and He just brought that up. Is that true?
Are you guys psychics?
Just Jesus. Just Jesus.
Anyways, I got the sense that there was something that happened with the girl on a volleyball team, and that it created some tension. And the Lord doesn't want there to be tension, and that He wants to restore a relationship. And if there's anyone you need to forgive, all you got to do is forgive that person.
Crying again.
It's okay. All you got to do is forgive that person, and He's gonna actually restore the friendship that was once really, really tight, and it's good. And He loves you. And
can we? Do you want to do that? Do you want to pray forgiveness?
Can you pray for you one more time?
This is so good.
Lead you in that forgiveness.
Okay, so Jesus.
Jesus.
In your name.
In your name.
And by your power.
By your power.
I forgive.
I forgive.
And who do you want to forgive? I don't even know them.
Do I have to say a name?
Yeah, say a name.
Julie.
Julie.
Aaron. Yeah. Sure.
And I release.
And I release.
Any anger.
Any anger.
That had laid hold of my life.
That has laid hold of my life.
Let's try another one. Jesus.
Jesus.
I forgive.
I forgive.
Myself.
Myself.
For stepping out of relationship with you.
For stepping out of relationship with you.
And for lack of faith.
And for lack of faith.
In what you want to do in my life.
And what you want to do in my life.
In Jesus.
In Jesus.
I accept.
I accept.
Your plan for my life.
Your plan for my life.
And yeah, like, he just loves that you forgave just like he forgave from the cross. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, amen. Psychics, just Christians.
I don't believe it.
Oh, God bless you, girl. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
A word of knowledge is when the Holy Spirit reveals to us a fact about a person's life that is either objectively true or false. We see that Jesus uses this in Scripture in the story of the woman at the well, right? In their conversation together, her major breakthrough experience happened when the Lord revealed to her facts about her life, about her husband's, about her history, to the point where she moves from a place of unbelief to a place of going out to others and saying, come and meet the man who told me everything about myself. In our conversation with Carrie, we saw a similar thing take place. We saw her move from a place of incredulity to an amazing encounter experience, and the breakthrough moment was when we were able to reveal to her a word that the Lord had spoken into our hearts. So at the conclusion of our conversation with Carrie, she was just so eager and excited to be invested in the next step of her faith walk. So at the conclusion of our time, we connected her with a local faith community so that she can continue to develop that relationship with Jesus.
Moving in the gifts of the Holy Spirit is a process. It requires discipleship. I think if people knew how many times I didn't hear God's voice accurately, they would be really surprised. But it was actually in getting it wrong that I actually learned really what was from God and what was not from God. If I think I'm hearing from God, I'm never presumptuous. I always confirm and say, is this true? Does this make sense? And if it is true, if it does make sense, then I have faith to go forward into more breakthrough.
During their time evangelizing, they prayed with students of all backgrounds, including a Muslim student who in prayer encountered the peace and presence of God as Father Matthias prayed for her. An exchange student from China who had never heard the gospel and invited Jesus into his life.
So if I'm in a situation and I think I hear something from God, it's an inspiration or a prompting or a word, but I'm not sure, I'm going to go and take a risk that it is from God because I believe it is God who wants to inspire me to do something great for Him, to allow Him to work in a powerful way. So taking risk is in many ways the only way for you to find out whether or not God is inspiring you.
God simply asks for our availability, and He blesses us with His ability. He calls us out of our comfort zone so that we can rely fully on the work of our Comforter.
Evangelizing is not just communicating a message. God loves you, Jesus is Lord, Jesus died for your sins. It's about communicating divine life and power. It's the Lord actually touching another person through you. When there's an anointing of the Holy Spirit, that person that you're evangelizing is actually coming into contact with the Lord through you. And without that, our evangelization has no power. We're trying to carry out a divine task with human resources, and it doesn't work very well. The Lord gives us gifts, not for us, but for the people He wants to reach through us.
The reason why we can be fearless in evangelization is that God did not give us a spirit of fear, but He gave us a spirit of power, love, and self-control. It is this spirit that we have received at our baptism that enables us to be fearless in proclaiming the one who came and died for us and rose that we might have life. And so this fearless response is a response to the God who has no fear, who has given us no spirit of fear, but has given us a spirit of power and love. And when we tap into that power and love that God has given to us, then we can step out in faith, bringing that love to others.
That's it. That's what it means to be a spirit-filled, fearless evangelizer. At the beginning of making this film, I set out to find what it means to be fearlessly open to the working of the Holy Spirit. Although this film focuses on Father Matthias, Patrick, and Aaron, they don't have more Holy Spirit than we do. They're not special. It's not like Jesus loves them more than us. This is for all of us. This is what Jesus came to give us. This film is over, but my journey is just beginning. If there's one thing I've learned in making this film, it is that Catholic evangelization is fearless evangelization, and everyone gets to do it. I am Maura Smith, and I am fearless. Are you fearless?